Clara, what? Hello, everyone. I'm Father Aaron, and welcome to the Dungeon Minister. Well, today is a special episode. Hmm? Oh, this. Who are you? Yeah, you're in trouble now, buddy. Yeah, well, okay. So, who this is part of what I'm here to talk about today. The recaps will restart soon, don't worry. I have a bit of the last adventure to recap, and then I have some really cool adventure to recap from CleriCon. But today I'm here specifically to wrap up CleriCon in a more formal way than I did in my sort of foggy, exhausted state on the third day. All right, and I want to start with this right here. Now, I've posted pictures around on social media. I've shown it off before, but this is awesome. It's me. It's me. It's my logo, the Dungeon Minister, a little fellow in black with the white collar and a dice for a head, a d20 for a head. And this comes from the very cool Wolf's Brigade and his wife. I don't know if she has an online name. Just incidentally, I'm going to be using online persona names here when I thank people because I don't know who is and isn't comfortable sharing their real names. If they share it on their channel, then I'll go ahead and share it. Otherwise, I'll just use the channel name or their avatar name or their online personality. Anyway, because I don't know if she has one. Wolf's Brigade does, and he and his wife, this was actually her creation. It's fabulous. It's so cool. So huge thank you to you guys. And what's more, the head comes off. My actual head doesn't, but this one does, and it is a dice box. How cool is that? I think that is so awesome. So, and the great thing also is you can set it depending on your mood. Like not quite a critical failure, but I'm really low today. Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good. So, anyway, CleriCon, I think, was a lot of fun, and I'm so pleased with it all. I'm going to give myself a nat 20 right now because that's about how I feel. Okay, some more thank yous. First of all, I have to thank Grumpy Old Slan. Grumpy Old Slan, who has just started a channel recently, by the way. There will be a link to his channel and everyone else I mention down below. If they're producing content, if they have a YouTube account just so that they can subscribe to things, I'm not going to send you there because anyway. But Grumpy Old Slan has started producing content, so find his link below. He was an enormous help. From the very moment that I announced I was doing this con, he offered his help. And we had like over an hour Zoom conversation, just giving me advice, focus on this, don't worry too much about that. This is where you need to pay some attention. One of the big pieces of advice, I'll get into the advice later, but it was invaluable. He also sent materials like the sign-up sheets for people who wanted to sell things in Fleetwood's Cabinet of Curiosities. He provided the sheets that facilitated all of that, right? And then when he came to the con, he showed up early on Friday, and he was just helpful. The entire time, helpful. I mean, if something needed doing, he was there to do it, to the point that Saturday night, I said, at 1 in the morning or something, I said, look, I'm going to go set up the altar for Sunday so that I don't have to do it in the morning, right? He helped me do that. Had nothing to do with the convention, but it had to do with helping me out and realizing that I was, kind of tired. I'm sure he was too. So huge thank you to Grumpy Old Slan. I also want to thank the YouTubers who came out, the sort of headliner names, the people that y'all have heard of, who made the event really, really, really cool. So, Bandit's Keep, he does introduce himself as Daniel, so I'll use that. Daniel from Bandit's Keep, Mage's Musings, Tale of the Manticore. All three of these guys came to run games. And I can't tell you how many people said, "Oh yeah, I heard Tale of the Manticore was going to be there. I want a game with him. I'm coming." So that really it gave buzz to the whole thing. It really was lovely. I also want to thank Hexed Press, who came along with Bandit's Keep. It was a surprise, but it was a thoroughly pleasant one. Who he wasn't running games, but he did get on social media. He was posting a vlog about the trip here, and it helps. It creates some buzz around the thing, and it says, "Oh, that's pretty cool. I want to go to that next year." So thank you very much to all of those very fine gentlemen. Again, their channels linked below. But famous YouTubers were not the only people running games, and there were others as well, and I want to thank them. Robert Stauffer, who ran a Beckme game and seemed to have a great time around that table. Justin Moharib, who ran a Dungeon Crawl Classics and a Mutant Crawl Classics, both of which looked like they were insanely fun. I wish I could have looked in on the Mutant Crawl Classics more closely, because that one really interested me, but there was just so much else going on that I didn't have the focus to attend to that, but that one really sounds pretty cool. Chris Cosner ran a Purple Hack of Deathbringer, which was a lot of fun. We ended up fighting, I played in that one, we ended up fighting rats in the sewer, and a were-rat came along, and then there was a cave with trolls down a waterfall, and we were throwing things down. It was really very cool. Okay. I also want to thank Chris Engler, who came in on Sunday to run a Mork Borg. Phil Reimer just did a pickup game of Dungeon Crawl Classics, I think it was DCC, on Sunday morning. That was also very awesome. And my own boy, Fleetwood, he ran a Hollow World game, and he ran a Simple Sixes game set in World War II. And from what I heard, they went pretty well. And last but not least, Bob Johnny. My own little Bob Johnny, he ran his D2 system game, and he ran it for a little kid who, he was brought there by his dad, and he was interested. Like, he found the stuff fascinating, but he's just too young to be able to understand the rules well enough to get into everything. So he was kind of sitting around like, okay, now what do? I've looked at the stuff at the Hooded Goblin, which was awesome. I've looked at the things on the Fleetwood's Cabinet of Curiosities table, awesome. But now what? So, first of all, Bob Johnny ran a game for him, and that was lovely. They both seemed to have a good time there. And then I took him over to BS Games, another thank you that I have. BS Games, it's Bill and Scott. They were there demoing their stuff. They were showing off Math Magician's Duel, which they released a while ago, and the little boy played that and had a great time. I think they bought a game, too. I think he liked it so much they bought it. And they were also demoing a new game that's going to be coming out, Synoda. Now, Bob Johnny played that, and Fofire, my wife, played that. I played it for a little bit, but I was being pulled in 100 directions, so I didn't get to play much of it. But both Bob Johnny and my wife, Fofire, they both said it was a really good game, and when it comes out, we're getting that. I think everyone we know is getting Synoda for Christmas if it comes out in time. If it doesn't come out for Christmas, then everyone we know will get Synoda for Easter. Next Christmas. I don't know. It's a really cool game, though. So thank you to BS Games for being there. It gave people something to do between times. And it's really cool to have a game maker there, demonstrating a new game. Speaking of something that kind of gives a dimension and I don't want to say legitimacy, but a sort of, gravity to it, is the fact that the Hooded Goblin was there. The Hooded Goblin is our friendly local game shop. They were there. They set up a table to sell stuff. They also donated some things for the silent auction. And it was great to have them there because it did say, like, this is a real event. This isn't just a bunch of guys hanging around in a church hall playing games. Kind of was. But it's an event, and so they were there for that, and that was great to see them. I hope people found some really cool treasures there. They brought some really cool stuff from what it looked like. Speaking of the silent auction, I need to thank them for the items that they put in the auction. Also, Lawrence at Dirty Basement Terrain, another channel, you'll find it below. Lawrence sent some beautiful, beautiful terrain. Just fabulous. The Dwarven Pillars, actually, the guy from Hooded Goblin won the bid on that, and he's displaying them at the Hooded Goblin, which I think is pretty cool because they're really, really fabulous. He said it's going to display it at the Goblin, but then he's going to take it out when he plays his own games because he's got a dwarf thing going on. Fabulous stuff. A lot of really cool stuff that Lawrence sent up. There's a whole video of me unboxing Lawrence's stuff, so you can look below. There's also a video of me unboxing things from James F. Keck of Keck Publishings. He sent a whole whack of his games, and those were on the auction table, and I also used some of them as kind of thank yous to the people who helped out. Two of them got away before I had stashed them away, right? I don't want these to end up on the auction table, so I stashed them away. And of course, out of sight, out of mind, I completely forgot I had stashed them until I was doing some cleanup. Fortunately, I was in time to catch a couple of the guys, but I still need to send some thank you gifts out for people who participated. So those are on their way. Those are on their way. But that was fabulous from James, and you'll find a link. He doesn't do a YouTube channel, but he does have things over on DriveThruRPG. I'll link to that down below as well. Also helping, though, were people who just flat out made donations to help make this happen. Now, I am going to name the people who I know gave specifically for the con. There are other people who made contributions that weren't specifically attached to the convention, and so I don't know if they had meant just to support the channel, with a super chat, or if they were giving specifically for this. So if you were giving specifically for the con and I don't mention you, it's not because I didn't see your contribution or appreciate it. It's that I didn't know if it was associated with the convention and I didn't want to assume, right? But people I know who gave specifically to support the convention, Uncle Brat. Uncle Brat was very generous in helping to support this. A big thank you to Uncle Brat. Tim, Dice Tower Tim. Dice Tower Tim bought a pass, so did Uncle Brat, bought a con pass knowing that they couldn't come, and also made a donation to support that. It was Jeff Sordis also bought a con pass knowing he couldn't come, just to give some support. There was also during a live stream that I was on, Local Gumby, Todd Van Evenhoven made contributions that I'm pretty sure were directly for the con. The Dungeon Delver gave a donation for con supplies. And all of that, what that helped do is buy, the food for the con suite, and not all of which sold, so we're going to be eating chips for a while. If anyone wants a bag of chips, come on over. I've got some. And all the other kinds of stuff, right? Badge holders and lanyards and the printing and all that stuff. That really, that kind of stuff. It's incidental expenses that pile up, and those donations really helped to defray that and to cover those costs. So we did actually cover the costs of con this year. Speaking of Dungeon Delver, I also need to thank him for his help on the opening night dinner trivia contest. At the opening dinner, there was a little trivia sheet at everyone's place, and those were questions. I supplied questions from Beckme, and Fleetwood, thank you to Fleetwood, he supplied one specifically from Hollow World, which is a setting of Beckme. And the Dungeon Delver, Bill Sylvie, he provided questions about AD&D. And I tell you, I don't know AD&D well enough to come up with... I don't really know AD&D very well at all. And so thank you to Bill and to Fleetwood for those questions. I got to tell you, that was a tough trivia quiz. In fact, the highest score, the winner, Mage's Musings, won with a score of 14 out of 30. That was a hard trivia quiz. Maybe next year we'll make it a little easier. Just a little easier. Yeah. But thank you. Thank you for that. Finally, I want to thank everyone who came to the convention and by their participation and their presence made it a success and a lot of fun. I want to thank everyone who gave me words of encouragement, especially, I was doing live streams during the con, and I've watched them since, and I get more and more tired looking as it goes on. So thank you for the words of encouragement and support, and for spreading the word. People who posted at places, people who reposted my Facebook and Twitter announcements. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This ended up being a lot of fun for me. I hope everyone who was involved in it, who participated, had anywhere even half as much fun as I did. It was a blast. Now, we learned some things, we learned some things, or I learned some things, because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, right? I've never done this before. So I did learn some things that may be applied in the future. That's a question I got asked a lot. Will I be doing a CleriCon 2024? I'll get to that later. Right now, just a brief recap of what happened. So Friday, I told you, a grumpy old Slan showed up, and I was running around last minute things. I realized I hadn't gotten a float for the Touchberry's Tuck Shop where people bought snacks and stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't have a float for that, and I knew that I wouldn't have a car after Friday night because we have one car in our family, and uh, I had the car that afternoon. I was driving around. I was going to go get my family, bring them to the church. We would have the dinner. And after the dinner, they were going to go home because I was running the game that night. And then I was there. I stayed overnight. I slept on a cot in my office, and I stayed over all of Saturday. Again, slept on the cot in my office into Sunday. My family came to church. They joined the con, and then I had the car again. So I knew I wasn't going to have a car to go run to the bank, so I ran off to do that. Anyway, I got the family, came in. By the time I came back, Mage's Musings had shown up, and Bill from BS Games had shown up, and the people started coming, and to have faces to put to the names. Oh, you're General Nut. Oh, you're Wolf's Brigade. It was fabulous. And got a message that the Bandits Keep and Hexed Press were on their way and that they actually were going to make it for the dinner. They didn't know if they were going to be able to, but apparently traffic was good to them. And so the dinner came in and people were filtering in, and yep, it looks like we've got everyone. There was one person who was a bit late, but he made it without, it was a few minutes. I was a little worried because of the clocks hadn't gone back yet, and so I put signs out at the road and things like that, but then it's dark. It's dark so early. It's better now that we've had the fall back, but anyway, they came to a beautiful, beautiful dinner. And we had dinner, and people were talking and getting to know each other, which was fabulous. After that, we cleared the tables, and we had the first game of the con, which is a Beck Me adventure, The Poisoned Well. I will be recapping that here on the channel, so look for that in the by the next week, I'd say. I have to finish off the last adventure with the Honeywood Gang, and then I'll get to this. It is set in the same world as the Honeywood Gang, and you'll hear that there's some overlap. Anyway, that night finished at midnight. We wrapped up a little after midnight, actually, probably about 12:20, 12:30 before we wrapped up the game. Folks dispersed to where they were going to stay, and I got the worst night of sleep of my life. To get a night of sleep isn't really even. I stayed up till about 3 in the morning. Last minute details that I'd forgotten. Actually, it was more like 4. Last minute things I'd forgotten to print out, to organize, that's me, kind of last minute. And but then I woke up Saturday, and just the energy of, yes, this is the day, kind of carried me. And we had got the coffee on, and we had the Hooded Goblins showing up to set up, and people started to come to set up their games. Great first round of games, right? Then we had just because I'm silly, I wanted to do Carrot in a Box. If you've ever seen Carrot in a Box, it's a fun game. So we played Carrot in a Box just to indulge me, really, when it came down to it. Second round of games in the afternoon went really well. It was during that my family came back because they'd been at violin lessons in the morning. And so Fleetwood and Bob Johnny ran their games then, and they stuck around for a while. They were there also for Tale of the Manticore, demonstrating his pendulum world building thing. I'm going to link that down below as well. It is a really cool tool, and I understand why he calls it pendulum. I was like, what's pendulum? I get it now. It's really quite cool. And after that, we had a little while after that, we had the Bob Johnny onion eating contest, which Touchberry won. Touchberry won, and all the while grinning and giving thumbs up to the competition, like, I've got this, right? He was just tears down his face. But poor grumpy old Slan, at this point, it's like, I can't, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. But Touchberry ate it like an onion, so he won the cup. And then that evening there were more games. My second game, which I was going to live stream, just situations didn't work out. There were a couple of, well, it was a couple and a father and daughter who were going to come, but it just didn't work out. Things didn't happen, and so it was one guy and I, and we decided, you know what, we'll just chat, and I had a great talk. We had a great time talking, philosophy and religion and games and everything else. So we did that while three other games happened in the room, including the chainmail game, which looked very cool, and that was run by Bandit's Keep. That went on, and then people started to disperse as their games broke up. Sunday morning, obviously, I was busy with church, but as I said, there was a pickup game happening at the open tables, which was really cool. And then after church, I took people on a walking tour of Glen Williams, which is Honeywood in the game. The first time we played the game, we had come down to the church to play it. I think Faux Fire, my wife, she wasn't Faux Fire at the time, I think my wife had an online exam to take, and so we cleared the house out for her. And we came down here and played. And so, being down here and being of very little imagination, I just said, "Yeah, Honeywood looks just like this." So I just used the village. So I took people around and showed them, well, there's the herbalist who had the wolf's bane in her garden without realizing that it had anything to do with werewolves, and here's the weaver's row where the servant of Sir Trevor went to hide when the werewolves attacked, and there's Sir Trevor's house, right? And the mayor would be over there. There's Rupert's cottage. Here's where the battle at the wall happened, where Sulix gave his life, and this is, the river that the water elemental came out of. All that stuff, right? That's the copper kettle, which is, again, I have no imagination, actually called the copper kettle. And next door to it, just like in the game world, also in Honeywood, there is the town hall, right? So we did a little tour of the village and showed people what was what in the game, and then back to the hall for the afternoon sessions, which was the Morkborg and the Simple Sixes, and those went on and wrapped up, and then it was time to blow the horn. It was time to blow the horn because the convention was over. Oh man, and I got to the end of it in that sort of happy tired that you have when you've just done some big event, right? I'm sure everyone was in a similar place because I'm not the only one who was running around doing stuff. Other people were running games, Mage's Musings was saying, like, yeah, that was a lot, the two games in one day. Probably shouldn't have done that, And I'm thinking, well, although I was disappointed that my second game didn't happen, on the other hand, I was sort of glad because it gave me a chance to sit back and see how things were going and to rest. And again, I had a great conversation. So that is how the con went. Um, Someone asked me, speaking of how things went, someone had asked me, they said I would like to know the ins and outs of how to run something like this in the future. How do you do that? What do you do? So I don't know. I would like to know myself. I've done one. It worked. I think largely based on everyone else's help and good luck and goodwill, But here are some things that I did learn. One, as Grumpy Old Slan told me, start with the budget, right? Don't start with a white piece of paper and say, what could we do? Where will we put the vendors? Where what? No. Start with the budget, right? And go out from that. Keep that central to your planning because you could very easily end up taking a bath on this kind of stuff, right? If things didn't get lined up, or if you just kept spending, oh, we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll do this and we'll do that, you could end up out of control and you wouldn't cover costs and you would be in trouble. Okay, so first thing, start with the budget. Now that doesn't mean that you're not creative, that you're not having fun, that you're all, well, worry about the money. You just have to know where the money is, and if you're going to overspend, you have to know you're overspending. So start with the budget. Near the end, I strayed from that because things were happening really fast and I just had to get stuff done, and I didn't always have time to go back and plug everything in. But because I had stayed on the budget until about 4 days beforehand, because I'd stayed on I kept that central for so long, even when I went off of it, I couldn't go very far, right? So keep the budget central. Two, get good people. And the heart of that is asking them. People who love this hobby want to see things happen, and they want to see it happen, and they want it to succeed. They want to see it happen, and they want to see it thrive. So they're going to, and not everybody, but there are going to be plenty of people who say yes. I went into the Hooded Goblin, and all I wanted to ask them to do is if they could be there with a table to sell things, right? I said, I'm going to have a group of people, gamers all together, and a lot of them people who don't know about your store because they're from out of town. Um, you know, could you be there to sell stuff? They offered the things for the silent auction, right? That was over and above. So that is lovely. And when word got out that we were doing it, that there was going to be a silent auction, people started offering things, right? So ask people. People will come to support things that they think are cool. And if you ask in this community, there's so many generous people, so many generous people. So ask for help. That's a big one. Speaking of help, have someone to do the nitty gritty stuff so that you can keep your mind on the organizational part of it. Okay. Now, Grumpy Old Slan did a lot of that for me. He really did. He took on the Fleetwood's Cabinet of Curiosities and he ran the nitty gritty of that. And that's a lot of detail stuff that when you're trying to think of the big picture would be a real split focus. So he was able to handle that while I handled the other stuff. I had someone else lined up. It's a teenager, but he got a job. And, fair play to him. He got a job. I'm glad he got a job. But yeah. Oh well. So and then when he let me know, it's like I'm not gonna be able to be there that weekend. I'm like, oh, okay. And I thought, oh, I can do those things. I mean, I did them, but probably not as well as they should have been done. And probably to my own detriment. It would have been helpful to have someone to do the nitty gritty stuff. Checking people in, selling the stuff at Tuck Berry's tuck shop, making the pizzas, doing the dishes. I know it's scut work, but someone to do that kind of stuff really would have helped. Really would have helped. So that's what. So budget, ask people, and specifically ask someone to do those kinds of things. And what do they get? Well, they get, first of all, they get into the con. Make sure that they have some time that they can go play some games. Don't make them do that stuff all the time. Free them up at some point. Maybe ask at least two people, someone who can cover their, and so they get something out of it. But do find someone to do that kind of nitty gritty stuff. The other big thing I would say, and this one is awkward for me because I don't like to praise myself, but don't start from zero. Start from a place where you already have connections with people and some goodwill out there. This channel has so many people who support it and are so kind and so enthusiastic about this ridiculous thing that I do.
I am Cornelio.
So enthusiastic about it that when I announced it was happening, there were people willing to come from Kentucky, from Indiana, from Montreal, from New York, right, to be part of it. It really helped. So that when the convention started, when it was launched, it already had a personality, right? It already had a tone because the channel exists. So there was a sense of what it was going to be already. So those are some general ideas of how to get this done. Oh, one other. And this sounds self-serving, but really, I think this one is a key point. If you're doing a convention and you need space, check out a church hall. I imagine synagogues, mosques, temples have the same kind of thing. Check out a hall at a place of worship. Why? Because they generally have a large enough space. I mean, our hall is not big, but this is a small convention, so it didn't matter. They generally have a large space that they use infrequently. Now, ours is rented out on the regular. It gets rented out to various people, but it's there. It's not constantly in use, and it is available for rental. Most of the time, these church halls, they're going to have tables. They're going to have chairs because they hold events there, right? So they've got that stuff. They're going to be wheelchair accessible. accessible for people with disabilities, because churches and I expect most places of worship skew to the older, right? So they're going to be accessible. There's going to be people on hand available who are used to putting on dinners and events, because churches, I can only speak for churches. I don't know. I assume mosques and temples and synagogues do this as well. Churches put on dinners, roast beef dinner, a pierogi dinner, all that kind of stuff. So there's people already there who are used to coming down to the kitchen and whipping up a dinner for X number of people. But I would say a church hall, it's going to be a much less expensive space. That's the big one. It's going to be a less expensive space than a hotel convention room, right? If I had tried to do this at a hotel, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. It wouldn't have been able to afford it. As I said earlier, that's not my personal. It's over there. That's why I keep doing this. It's not my personal hall. I don't own it. And even though I'm the rector of the parish, I have to rent the space. But the rental of the space is so much less expensive than if I'd gone to anywhere else. Anywhere else, it would have been an arm and a leg for 3 days, because I needed time to set up and I needed time to tear down. So it was essentially 3 full days. Prohibitively expensive anywhere else. Okay, just two more things. One, I was asked a number of times during the convention, is there merch? Is there merch for sale? Can I buy a t-shirt? And I had hoped to have, I've got a number of designs. I'd hoped to have a few of them present, and I actually bought shirts for the boys to wear to the convention so that they could, first of all, because they would like to have the shirt, but also to advertise the fact that we have shirts. But yeah, Teespring is pretty slow with its shipping. Pretty slow. So if you are going to order any of the con merch or any Dungeon Minister merch, like for Christmas presents, order it now. Unless you live across the street from the warehouse, in which case you probably should have ordered it 3 months ago. Anyway, there is merch available. Again, link below. I have got specifically CleriCon design. There's also the Honeywood Fire Department Torchberry unit design. There's the Bob Johnny's Best Onion Company design, and one that's actually my favorite, the woodcut of the guy just with arrows and weapons sticking out of him, and it says, "What? I have 1 hit point. I'm fine." So all of that is available down in a link below there. Okay, so I've thanked people, recapped the event, talked about how to put one together, at least from my perspective. Oh, and the merch. The other one is, as I alluded to earlier, will there be a CleriCon 2024? Well, I can't see the future. I can't see the future, but I can tell you this much. I have sent out a survey asking the people who came this year what they thought, what we should keep, what we could change, how things could be made better, more convenient, etc. So clearly, I have the intention of doing this again in 2024. All right, I want to thank everyone again. Thank you to the people I named earlier, and thank you to the people that I may have forgotten because I have a sieve for a brain. You know my memory, the way it goes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. CleriCon 2023 was a lot of fun. It was a great time. At least I had a great time. I hope everyone else did too. And if you came, I hope you can come back for 2024. If you weren't able to come this year, see you in 2024.